How do you stay warm in the shop through the winter? Well, you may want to check out the Made in the USA SunFire. We've got the SunFire SF120, which is a 120,000 BTU diesel heater. Now, it not only runs on diesel, it'll also run on diesel number 2, as well as kerosene. So you can run any of those fuels without changing anything, and you're gonna have no fumes. Now let's dive in, take a closer look at these features, and then we're actually gonna install this somewhere or place it somewhere where it's gonna be very useful, even though we're right here in the middle of Central Florida. And yeah, we don't get very many freezes through the winter, but it does get cold, and specifically this place, it's gonna be a very important item to keep things warm. Now to start with, this is no small unit. This thing, just the face of this, I don't know what you'd call this, but the heat thrower here is about 20¼ inches in circumference. Yeah, so about 21 inches when you look at this guard in circumference. We really like the makeup and the build quality of this. As we mentioned, it's made in the USA. Some great quality put into this, you can tell. The heat shield will come separate on this, both this shield and this shield. You have to put those on, but it's really not hard to do. I think install the wheels and a couple of the handles, but other than that, it comes all intact. And this thing does weigh a couple of 100 pounds, so make sure you got a little help when you're uncrating this thing and putting it together. But very easy to do. Within a few minutes, you can have it put together and ready to roll. At the base here, we have large 8-inch rubber wheels. Not only that, there's actually grease zerk fittings on here to grease these, so not just some bushing in there, but actually a greasable joint there as well when you're wheeling around this thing. And by the way, even though it's very heavy, it is very easy to roll around with the handle and the wheels. And you pretty much have a full roll cage around this thing as well. And not only that, we have a lifting ring up there as well to make things really easy if you're using machinery to lift this thing and put it in a truck or wherever you need to haul it. Thought this was very handy. You have a barcode right here that you can scan to take you to support and some FAQ things. Again, the big Made in the USA sticker. Also, you have a thumb screw here that you can actually loosen this, and you do get some pivot here on the heater where you can kind of aim that up and aim it more level. Not a lot of movement, but again, you can throw that heat just a little higher if you want to cover a larger spread. Now this whole base down here is basically the fuel tank, and we get a 14-gallon tank on the SF120. This is going to be your lid to refill it. And as we mentioned, there is no smell, no fumes with this as well. Just to give you a general idea, it's about 27 inches from front to back, including the wheels or tires. And as far as the height on this, to the top of the lifting ring, you're looking at 39 inches. There's no need to open up the lid to stick a stick in there to measure your fuel. You actually have a fuel gauge right here that's going to tell you very easily. There's also a fuel filter right here, making sure that we keep all the fuel clean. Again, the dual fuel sticker here tells us we can run diesel, number 2, or even kerosene in this. But do not burn gasoline in here. Now here we are on the rear of the unit, so opposite of where we saw the wheels and tires. And by the way, width on this is about 23 inches, but if you look at wheels and tires, or if you look at from outside wheel to outside wheel, that's going to be closer to 28 inches. So you see we have the wheels on the front, but yet on the back we have these adjustable legs. So you can easily just spin these out to adjust these and make sure we're sitting level. Or if it doesn't feel like it's sitting square, you can, again, screw that down. Very easy to make quick adjustments. We have a foldable handle right here that tucks away nicely right there against the unit. But if we lift it up, and we'll see, by the way, we don't have to put a pin in there. We have that spring detent on this pin right here. You can pull that out to release it, but if we lift it up, it automatically locks into place, and now we can use that handle to wheel this around. Again, pull the pin, and it folds back down. And there's even a Velcro strap here to strap that handle against it also. Now, obviously, we're running on diesel or kerosene, but it does take electric to get things started. And so we have a typical 120 volt plug that you can plug into any outlet. There's not going to be a lot of draw on that, so you don't have to worry about, you know, any heavy amperage ratings for this. Simple operation, both turning this on and shutting it off. So basically, we have an on-off switch, so you want to power it up by hitting the on-off, and then we have a reset button, and that's about it. Here's the startup procedure and the shutdown procedure. turn heater on, heater will fire within 15 seconds. If heater fails to fire, press the reset button for 1 second and restart. Shutdown procedure, turn heater off. Blower will continue to cool down the heater for 5 minutes. Do not unplug until the blower stops. Again, you can't get much simpler than that. Also, right here on the top of the unit, it gives you a little instructions on fueling it up and also finding information. You can also pull this, has a pull tab right there, and actually remove that sticker if you don't need it. And again, a barcode that you can actually scan, and it'll give you a quick start video. And right down, tucked away in there, is a fuel primer switch. So if you're running out of fuel or your first time using it, you may have to use the primer to prime the fuel. Other than that, you probably won't have to touch this. Now, the first time you fire this up, I would recommend you doing it outside. Even though it is definitely safe for indoors, you're probably going to have some manufacturing oils and different things on there. So I would imagine you're going to burn off some stuff. So run it for 5-10 minutes outdoors before you run it indoors. And once you do that the first time, you should be absolutely good. So let's go ahead and fuel this up. So you can see our fuel gauge is registering a little fuel. It looks like about 1/8 of a tank. I did put a couple of gallons in there. Put our lid back on. And since this is the first time, we're going to go ahead and prime. That should be good. Okay, we didn't quite prime it long enough. You should hear a different tone like this. Should quiet down so it's not surging, if you will. And then you know it's actually picking up fuel, and then you should be good to go. Then you should be able to turn on your heater. So you heard the fan kick on, so it's going to run for a few seconds. And now the heater just kicked on. So now I'm sure you hear it working, as well as you see the fire there behind the ring. And by the way, this is doing a great job at distributing that heat. It's not really a direct heat anywhere, just kind of throwing it everywhere with that diffuser there on the front. Okay, we're going to go ahead and shut it down. And as it mentioned, that you should hear a small blower running for probably about 5 minutes as everything cools down. So you hear the burners not going anymore, but that small blower is running. And by the way, I talked about it would probably smell the first fire up. It really didn't. I would still recommend doing that because there's a good chance that oils on the metal, everything else, that you might have just a hint of a smell, but really didn't notice anything outside. Okay, we're here at a warehouse that's actually not a warehouse. It's called Swim Dynamic, and basically they're teaching people to swim. A lot of those would be children, even toddlers, maybe even to the infant stage as well. And as well as adults, not just the children. But when you have young bodies in water, if you didn't know, hyperthermia will set in 25 times faster in water than in air. So very important to keep things warm, especially when those babies, children, are getting out of these pools. So we've got the SunFire SF120 set up over here in the corner because it does provide less of a jet stream and more of just a gentle heat that's dispersed quite rapidly out of the unit itself. So a lot of that air is coming out the top of that shroud or right above that shroud and throwing that air up. So it's not providing just kind of a direct jet stream of heat. So we're going to put it back here in the corner away from any little hands that may want to touch that and see if we can't actually warm this 3,000 plus square foot warehouse with these pools in here and keep these kids warm. Now again, one of the beauties of the SunFire is the fact that there's no fumes and no smell, even though it's running diesel or kerosene. I'm going to go ahead and fire this up, flip the switch, and if everything's primed, it should just start right up within a few seconds. First thing we hear is a small fan running inside here, and in a moment we'll hear the heater actually fire up. Now we see the cherry red glow here. We feel the heat coming out, and we hear that more of kind of a turbine engine. It's really still not all that loud. It is obviously audible, but as I was mentioning about the heat, there's really hardly any direct heat other than just kind of radiant heat coming off the very front. Most of it is kind of being thrown up here. Like here, can't even hardly hold my hand up there for too long because most of the heat is coming from about here around to here and being dispersed upward with, again, very little heat coming directly off the front. So we're going to run this, see how well it warms up this place, and we're supposed to get a cold front tomorrow, so it'll be a great test for that. And all I'd have to do is shut it off, basically turn the off switch to off, and this is going to basically kind of cool down. We're going to have a small fan running on the inside in here. It may run for about 5 minutes to make sure everything's cooled down, and then it will shut off. Okay, we're here another morning before all the kids get here, and we wanted to see how effective this would be. We had a little bit of a cold front rolled through. Again, Central Florida, I get it. This is not extremely cold, but it's in the 50s here, which, again, getting out of a pool can be very chilly, especially to a little one. And you can see we're getting down to 51, 52. It was down to 50 just a few seconds ago, but I think the good range is, say, 50 to 52 degrees. There we are at 50 degrees Fahrenheit, of course. And or there we go, 11 degrees Celsius. So anyway, let's fire up the SunFire and see what kind of difference we can make. We did move the heater back over to this corner because on the other side it was heating up the side of the pool too much. So we're going to try it over here and see how warm we can get this thing going. Again, this is a totally different day than we saw it earlier. So we're just going to flip the switch. We hear the small fan come on. Now we should hear the heater fire up. And there we go. We're good to go. Let's go check the temperature over here. So it looks like the temperature over here is a little warmer at like 55 degrees. In fact, it just went to 56. So yeah, 55, 56 degrees. We'll take a measurement every few minutes here and let you know how it's doing. So while we're waiting on this to warm up, and we'll take, like, let's say every 15 minutes we'll take a measurement, but just wanted to give a kind of an idea of 200, 250, 270. Yeah, like 350 degrees is one of the readings just in as far as the air temperature. So you definitely don't want anything within close proximity of this end of it, because you are getting some nice warm air coming out. And as we mentioned before, most of that is coming out up high and dispersing that air. Okay, so it's now been 1 hour since we've started the heater. We're up to 71 degrees. So that's a 16-degree split from when we started this at like 55 degrees. And by the way, if you'll notice, this is a metal building with no insulation on any of the walls. So it's below 50 outside. So all of that cold radiation or the heat from inside is escaping to the outside very quickly. So with no insulation, the SunFire is doing a great job at providing again, a 16-degree split there to make it much more comfortable when getting out of these pools. And of course, the longer this runs, we expect the more that will go up. Not sure how warm it will get it, but still making a difference of 15, 16 degrees is pretty impressive. If you have a large area that you need to keep warm, the SunFire may be the ticket for you. And we love the fact that it's made in the USA and it's made with quality materials. This thing is built solid. Also, we love the controls on this, very easy to use, and the fact that we can run diesel, we can run kerosene or diesel number 2, and the fact that you have no fumes and no smell. Now, I will say, if you try to move this while it's on, it will shut off, and then when you start it up again, you will get kind of a real quick puff of smoke and a little smell of diesel kind of instantly off the start, and then that will burn away rather quickly. So don't move this when it's under power. That's what I've got to say about that, and then you won't have to worry about any of that. Also, if you don't run it out of fuel, then you don't ever have to use that prime button except when you initially get it. And of course, when you need to change that filter, then you will need to use that prime button as well. Now, pricing on this is a little hefty. It's $2,500 for the 120,000 BTU heater. Now, they also have a larger heater and a smaller heater as well, depending on how much warming you need to do. But at the same time, to buy something of quality, made in the USA, and the fact that it will actually heat that large of a space, I think your pond gets pretty small as to what you're fishing in. And we've got a link to the SunFire in our description area, so feel free to check it out if you want to. Also keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And if you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And by all means, if you hated our video, well, give us a thumbs down. But would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day and keep smiling.